And that concludes the comments, Mrs. Harder.
Yes, that does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who spoke for your very thoughtful comments, and also to those who sent us emails relative to the same topic. You know, the next item on the agenda is there because at the last meeting we said that we would reconsider continuing with the virtual or going back to the hybrid at this meeting. So the intent of this agenda item is to have a discussion relative to this. I would ask one question I should have asked before, Dr. Scambray. Was there any staff report that would be part of this, or do you just want the comments or the discussion among the board members?
No staff report this week.
Okay, then I'm going to propose this to my colleagues, perhaps one by one. We can take maybe 3 or 4 minutes to comment on where we think we are, where we think we should go, and then see if we can reach consensus to give direction to the leadership in the district. So I don't know which direction to go. I guess I could go alphabetically. I'm going to take the person closest to me, and that looks like Dr. Jang. Would you like to comment first, Chester?
Yes, thank you for allowing me to be the first person to speak my thoughts on this. And I want to thank all the speakers tonight to share their views of what they think. Personally, I'm a healthcare worker. I'm a frontline. And I finally got the opportunity to be vaccinated yesterday. And every single day I work with patients, and I am always concerned for myself and for my staff and for my family, because I've seen too many cases and I've heard of too many cases that makes me really concerned about furthering the outbreak of this. I do understand that our students need to go back to school physically. But at the same time, though, it's not just about education. It's not just about emotional aspect of things. We're talking about a life and death situation. I know that statistically and scientifically, students have lower chances of contracting coronavirus. And if they do, the chances of them being really sick is also low. But at the same token, these kids are coming back home to their parents, to grandparents. My daughter works at FJUHSD Hospital, and I get to hear stories about how difficult it is working at the hospital right now, how dangerous it is, how the tents are all over the parking lots. And at Whittier Hospital, you see trucks going in that mobile morgues. When we see situations like this, we have to put in perspective the whole society as a whole, and not just us at Fullerton Joint Union. And what I'm going to share may not be acceptable to some of the parents or to some of my colleagues, but my proposal would be, let's extend distance learning by another 2 weeks to see how things go. And for the board members to have an emergency meeting to come back to revisit. That way, it takes us a month post vacation time to see where the numbers are going. The more vaccines are being given out now, and I'm hoping that we move on to the second phase where the general public will be getting more of the vaccines. Right now, the healthcare workers are getting it. And when I was over there yesterday, there were about 300 people in front of me and about 100 people after me upon 35 minutes arrival at the spot. And the only reason why I even got an appointment was I was actually logging on every 10 minutes, checking to see if I could get an appointment. One of my staff members actually went to Pomona Hospital, waited in line at 6 o'clock twice. The first time she went on Friday, she was turned away because there were only 500 doses available. Yesterday, she went at 6 a.m. She was number 396 out of 500, and that's at 6 a.m. My wife was going to go at 6 o'clock this morning as well to go wait in line. But luckily last night, checking every 10 minutes, she was able to get an appointment for today. One of my other assistants is taking the day off tomorrow so he could go wait in line at 6 o'clock. No, this is more about containing the situation so that the outbreak doesn't get any worse. No, I know that education is important. That's the reason why all of us are here. But at the same time, if you're not alive, what's the point of education? For a board member to say that, I know it sounds really bad, but we have to do what is right for the community, not just saying that, well, let's send the kids back because it's affecting their education. So I know that what my comments are today right now is it's not something that's shared by everyone, and not all the parents are happy with me right now. But as a healthcare provider, I feel that it's my job and duty to our students, our faculty, staff, administrators, the whole community, that we don't let this COVID be out of control in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chester. Okay, Lauren, you're on the other side of me. You get to go next.
Thank you, Marilyn. Okay, I'm sure you guys are shocked. I have a whole list of things to talk about tonight. But before I get going, there's a couple of things that I just want to recognize. The first thing is I'd like to recognize Natalia and Damaris, and if I didn't say your name right, I apologize. These were two students who, regardless of what their perspective was, had the courage and presence of mind to stand up in front of quite a large crowd, stand up virtually, obviously, and to speak their mind and to advocate for their perspective. And I just want to recognize that because that's not easy. It's not easy for adults to do. And these are two students who did that. And I want to recognize that. The other thing that I want to start off with is that I want to recognize the work that our site administrators, our district administrators, our teachers, and our classified staff do. They are the ones that are making this happen, whether students are on campus or not. And it's important that they hear how phenomenal they are and what a wonderful job they're doing. Because I'm about to advocate for keeping us in distance learning for a little bit longer. And that is in no way, shape, or form a reflection on the work that anyone has done. And I want to be really clear about that. So as you guys know, I like to pull numbers from OCHCA's website. And so I did that today. And as of today, the daily case rate in Orange County is 78.8. When we met in December, the daily case rate was 42.7. So we've almost doubled in the past 4 weeks after the Thanksgiving holidays, Christmas, New Year's, and the such. So we are currently at 78.8 and a testing positivity rate of 19.5. Last time we met, I happened to use my personal zip code as an example. And just in the interest of being totally inclusive to our whole district, I pulled the case rate data for every zip code that Fullerton Joint Union High School District serves. And instead of reading it to you, I'm going to summarize. So we have 7 zip codes. And this, as not a postmaster, that was my best estimate. So if I'm wrong and I left someone off, I apologize. But to my best estimate, we have 7 zip codes in our school district. And we ranged from 66.1 for a daily case rate to 130.7 for a daily case rate. And again, the county average is 78.8. We had 2 zip codes of our community that fell under 78.8, which means that the rest of our zip codes in our community were above, most of them by quite a bit. We have 4 over 100 and 1 at 83. And then we have the 2 that fell below the county average. So our community as a whole, regardless of zip code, is at or above the county average for daily case rate, as well as test positivity rate. I also want to point out that the county provides a cumulative number of positive children, and that is as reported by kids who have gone to get tested and have tested positive. We keep data in our district on the dashboard, but for the most part, it's dependent upon self-reporting. And unfortunately, there is a stigma about having COVID. Even though it is a pandemic and we are living through it, a lot of people are not public about having it or dealing with it. So there is a huge discrepancy between what our self-report and to the best of our ability to track internally and what is being reported by the county by kids who have tested positive. Now, granted, this kid data also includes younger children, and I have no way to factor out how many are high school age versus elementary and junior high age. But we ranged in our zip code between 103 on the low side and 749 positive children. So people from 0 to 18 who tested positive in our zip codes in Fullerton. So what this tells me is that it is extensive, more extensive than we have the ability to monitor and track as a school, as a school district. I know that people feel very passionately one way or the other about this topic. And someone mentioned that there is I wrote this down because it really struck me. One of our speakers said, I think it was Christine Watson, said there is no substitute for in-person learning, and she is absolutely 100% right. There is no substitute for in-person learning, but we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we have to work with what we have. And in this environment, in-person learning is not what's best for students and teachers and staff. It's not ideal, but it is what we have to work with right now. I want to also point out that she cited a lot of research about self-determination and things like that, which speaks to me as a person with a background in clinical psychology. But none of that research was done during a pandemic. And I think it's important that we really, when we look at data and we look at research, that we take it in context. And we're living in a time that has no research and no data that is done over time. We are living in the moment and taking the data as it comes at us. Another thing that I wanted to point out is that, and this is, I guess, is more of a question for everyone to think about. The state says, so the governor's office has said that you have to have, I believe it's 25 or 28 for your daily case rate in order to open. And that standard was set for schools who never opened in the first place because their communities were unsafe to open because their numbers were too high. We are currently at between 66.1 and 130.7. If 28 is the standard by which the governor has said that is safe to open, I'm wondering what the logic is opening when we are 5 times that rate in our own community. And I'm not talking about not opening ever. What I'm suggesting is along the lines of Dr. Jeng. I would suggest that we continue distance learning for an additional 9 days. That's all it is to get us to the end of January from our original date. It's 9 days. That would put us in line with La Habra School District, which is slated to be on distance learning through the 25th. Brea, which is slated to be on distance learning through the 29th. Buena Park, which is slated to be on distance learning through the 29th. Fullerton Elementary District is in a board meeting tonight, and I believe having this discussion tonight. And in all fairness, Placentia Yorba Linda is open for in-person hybrid. But those are all of our surrounding districts. And the majority of them, every single one of those ones that touches us is on distance learning at least through the end of January. And I think that it makes sense for us to be in alignment with the rest of our community, which is to stay in distance learning, let that surge from the holidays, because we know that it happened. People, they hung out together and the surge is happening. Let that pass through the end of January, and then let us resume in-person instruction, assuming it's safe and that surge recedes at that point in time.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Next, I would like to call on Vicki Calhoun. And you are muted, Vicki.
Okay, hi. I do agree with Chester. I think it's important for us to be out till the 1st of February for another 2 weeks. The reason why I was in my, of course, I live in 92832. I get a lot of people come up and speak with me. We lost 2 family members in different households. We have another family, multi-generational home, have had 10 people exposed So we are surging in certain parts of the community. I think down here we have 22.9% have tested positive in 92832. 92833, 19% have tested positive. So that's quite a bit. So I don't want to keep going over the numbers because I know Lauren just went over all them. But my vote is to continue distant learning, just to keep everybody safe, just so that we can get the numbers back from the holiday. And I would like to open back on February 1st. And if it's still surging, come back, emergency meeting, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Vicky. Joanne Foley. You are muted.
I'm used to being in the classroom where I'm always the one unmuted. My colleagues have done such an excellent job that I kept looking at my notes and like scrambling, and I appreciate that. I do want to reiterate some of the things that are said very quickly. First of all, thank you to everyone who's spoke to us. I know it takes time out of your schedule and it is nerve-wracking. And I especially want to also extend my thanks and appreciation for the articulate and eloquent way our high school students spoke. As a high school government teacher, I'm always encouraging students to engage in advocacy, and I greatly appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge that we receive emails and we get information from a variety of sources, not only input from our community members and including our parents and students, but also from our superintendent, from our organization, the California School Boards Association, from the Association of California School Administrators, which is commonly known as ACSA. So we get a wealth of material. And I think, judging from my colleagues' comments, it sounds like they have the same tab open I do all the time, which is on the county's dashboard, and looking at that almost obsessively, just hoping that that positive change that we're all waiting for begins to become realized. I do want to also acknowledge that there have been excellent protocols at the school, and that did not happen by magic. It's hard work and time of many, many people, and also acknowledge that the students did a good job while we're in hybrid of keeping their distance and wearing their masks. And I respect and appreciate that too. There was some concern about how successful that would be, and the students really stepped up. And so thank you for doing that. At a CSBA webinar just on Friday, they said exactly what Lauren Klatzker said, which is that the governor does talk about reopening, but he's talking about when your case rate is at 28 per 100,000 or less, and we're not even close to that. LA County is one of the hotbeds of the country, and really in some ways the world right now, and the virus doesn't respect human-made boundaries between counties. You know, the trustee area I represent is the west part of the district, which extends into Buena Park, and a little itty bitty bit I have of LA County. And we have students from LA County who have come here on school of choice. And so we neighbor that county. We're seeing high rates as well. And so it's important to acknowledge that we're not in a situation where the community conditions are such that it is reasonable or feasible to really open at this time. And Dr. Fauci, absolutely right. He also, along with Governor Newsom, want kids back in school. But Dr. Fauci also acknowledged two things. One, teenagers more like adults in the way they transmit the virus. And also, it has to do with community conditions. And our community conditions are just terrible. You know, when we met last time, it was almost like we had a tsunami warning, and we had to decide what to do about that tsunami warning. Do we go to higher ground, or do we stick it out and hope for the best? And we chose to go to higher ground, and I am so grateful that we did. So grateful, because the numbers are very scary right now. There is hope, though. The vaccine information and supply is changing daily. Chester talked about it. Yesterday on the county website, they weren't even talking yet about the next group, which includes teachers and school staff. Today when I went on it, it said 75 and older. I'm like, woohoo, because my mother-in-law is going to be 93 next month. And then I looked just before the meeting, and now they're talking 65 and older. In other words, it's getting closer and closer to be able to vaccinate the adults who are there to serve the students on campus, because we do have an obligation to everyone who's part of our school communities, whether it's the site community or the larger community. There's no doubt that the total education of a student is important. 2 of my classes are brand new students to me just a week ago because I have 2 semester classes. And yesterday, one of my brand new students wanted to talk politics with me after class, and we literally talked an hour. Students do need to engage and want to engage, and teachers need and want to engage. And yet, if we're not safe or we're fearful, that engagement will not be as authentic or useful as we would like it to be. No one is talking about staying on distance learning forever. It's too important to have kids back when possible. And so I agree with my colleagues. I also am looking really towards the end of the month that would be in line with our neighboring districts, including 2 of our elementary districts. And that gives a chance for the holiday surge to flatten. There are little bits of glimmer of hope in terms of it might be flattening, but it's too soon to tell. And therefore, it's too soon to go back safely. My heart aches. I've taught all year without seeing my students in person, all year. And yet, my heart would ache more if they were sick, or their family member was sick, or a colleague was sick. We're making the best we can do of a terrible situation that none of us created and none of us wanted. And so I agree with my colleagues, looking to extend, really to the end of January.
Thank you, Joanne. Jenna Binding, would you like to make a comment, please?
Yes. So first, I would really just like to echo Ms. Klasker and recognize the students who spoke up tonight. As a sole student among this group of panelists, I am a little bit outnumbered, so it is really great to see more students speaking up and having the courage to make their voices heard. So thank you to those students. It does put me in a very tough position because, as we know, students learn better in an in-person format. With that said, I do feel like I would be looking out for the students in the best way possible by being in favor of an additional 2 weeks of distance learning and then holding an emergency meeting to reevaluate and decide what we would like to do from there. If we reopen schools now, when the number of COVID cases are higher than they ever have been before, I fear that we'll enter back into a cycle of distance learning to hybrid and back again, which is not only extremely challenging for the students to adjust to, but also difficult on the teachers. If we stick it out for another 2 weeks with distance learning, we'll be keeping our students safe, our teachers safe, and our community safe, which at the end of the day is a part of our responsibility because our students rely on the community for additional learning, socialization with their families, and things like simply going to the library for extra studying time. So when we're comparing education to a life or death situation, I have to be in support of saving lives, students and their families included. So for these reasons, I'm in support of additional 2 weeks of distance learning.
Okay, thank you very much, Jenna. I am really proud of all you guys. And it's so interesting to me that we all have hit the same point, because I came in prepared to say the same thing that Chester began with and the rest of you continued with. I heard, I have a granddaughter who's a sophomore in a high school in Los Angeles County, not LA City School District, but in Los Angeles County. And her school is planning to go back on February the 5th. And they've been doing what we've doing, delaying and looking at options. I heard one of the speakers talk about the fact that we believe we've reached a peak. And I think that according to the data that I've seen, that is the case. And also in talking to my daughter, who's a doctor, she believed that by the end of January, things would be looking better, not perfect, but certainly better. So it seems to me, from listening to all of you, that we all have a consensus that 2 weeks or whatever is a good start. I don't know why the 5th, but maybe, anyway, looking at 2 weeks from now, what does that put us to the 5th? I don't have my calendar in front of me. Joanne? The 5th is a Monday, I guess.
I think February 1st is a Monday.
That's correct. February 1st is the Monday. February 5th is that Friday.
Right.
So if we go 2 more weeks, which is the week of the 18th and the week of the 25th, that would mean that the return date would be scheduled for Monday, February 1st.
Right.
Okay. So I think, unless there are any other comments, Dr. Scambry, you've amazingly seen 6 board members in agreement.
No comments tonight.
We know from your passionate comments last time that you want the kids back in school, and I think we all do too. And I've heard in the past that in Sacramento, when the legislators get letters, they count them. They have a stack of yes and a stack of no. Well, we're not doing that. And in fact, if we did, I think the stack of let's go back hybrid would be the bigger stack. But I think the alternative is 2 weeks more for caution, and then get our students back to see their friends and to see their teachers who do so much for them. So do you need anything else from us, Dr. Scambry?
No, we don't.
I
Just a specific date for the meeting. We can take care of that later. We can get the information out to the board and take care of that.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you everyone who spoke, your thoughtful comments. Thank you to Mrs. Harder for organizing this conversation, and we'll move on now with the meeting. Thank you so much.